Welcome to a New Life podcast with Pamela Jean, where it's all about empowering women to empower more women. Get ready, friends, to create a new life. And here is your host, Pamela Jean.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to this week's episode of A New Life podcast. I'm your host, Pamela Jean, and I'm so grateful that you're here with me today. I know that your time is the most valuable commodity that you have in your life is your time. I thank you so much for spending your time with me on the podcast today. This podcast is not going to disappoint. I have an incredible guest with me today. Her name is Jamie Miller. You'll get to meet Jamie in just a moment. But before we get started, if you will, please pass this podcast along to all of your friends and family that need something that's uplifting, supportive, encouraging. This is absolutely the place for you and all of your friends to be. So it's a New Life podcast with Pamela Jean. You'll find it on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. You can even hit my website, PamelaJean.anewlife.com. You can find it there as well. Just hit the podcast tab and it'll take you to all of the episodes. So without further ado, I want to bring Jamie Miller onto the podcast. She is an incredible woman with an incredible story, and I cannot wait for you to meet her. Jamie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Pamela. I love that our conversation gets to be recorded because we talk a lot.
We do talk a lot. I know we have never recorded it. So this is new for both of us. What's really funny is we could probably talk nonstop for 24 hours straight. I don't think we would have any trouble with that. But to respect our guest time or our audience time, we probably shouldn't do that. So Jamie, tell the audience, who are you? Where are you from? Where did you grow up? Just give us some backstory on you before we get into the meat of our conversation today.
Yes. Who am I? That's such a loaded question because when you look back at your whole life story, you're like, I've been a lot of things. I am going to be 40 years old this year. And I was having a conversation with a 22-year-old and he is just looking at me in awe going, what haven't you done? Right? Because my life has just, from childhood to, growing up to college to moving away. I've moved halfway across the country 4 times. I've had so many jobs, couple degrees, and it's just crazy to think, who am I?
That's a great question. Depends on which day you ask.
Exactly. And I think so many women, we are so many things. And, where I grew up, I am a Texas girl living in an Okie world, which
gotcha.
I absolutely love. I was born to Moses and Terry back in Dallas, Texas, and that's where I was born and raised. When I graduated high school, my mom said, Jamie, I want you to go to a Christian college. And I said, well, what's the biggest one? And so if you know me, you know it's because I just needed a lot of friends. And so I ended up moving away to Virginia at Liberty University for college, transferred to OU, met an Okie boy. And I remember going home, taking him to my friends back in Dallas. And they're like, oh my gosh, does he have a brother, cousins? And I'm like, you got to go up there. The Oklahoma boys are amazing, because they're all a little bit country. They're all, I call it the pocket knife effect, because you ask a group of Okie boys for a pocket knife and they all,
they all whip one out.
That was so wild. But they also will allow you to pick out their clothes and tell them what shoes to wear. So I married Jason Miller in 2010, and we have 2 beautiful daughters, ages 11 and 8. So we are, I used to say we're in it, but we're not. We're on the other side of that and doing all the activities. I'm a full-time working mom. He has a full-time job. We also own a business. We have 5 acres, partridge in a pear tree. Really.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, and at least your Dallas family, you're not too far from them. It's
Yeah,
Tulsa to Dallas is a quick, easy drive,
exactly.
and Dallas is obviously a great place to visit anytime you get a chance to head south.
Yeah,
So,
that's where all
Jamie,
the shopping happens.
I know exactly. That's where the retail damage does take
Exactly.
place. I understand. So, Jamie, tell me, people make a big impact in our lives. Who inspired you to become who you are today?
Mm. You know, we can't talk about Jamie Miller without talking about the Holy Spirit and what the Lord has done in my life. So when I think about who shepherded that, that would be my grandmother, Elaine Crawl. She's 84 years old. And also my mother, which is her daughter, Terry, and my sister, Julia. So I am one of the lucky ones that has a lineage of praying women. So if anybody can relate to that, you know that there's so much power. And for a lot of us, it's why we're still standing today.
How
Um,
awesome to have that
yes,
strength,
yes.
those powerful women in your life that sound like they've rallied around you your entire life.
And through prayer, we've had relational issues. I wouldn't say like actually my mom just texted me before we went live. Like, I mean, we're not perfect, but it's the praying that made such a difference in my life, and knowing that they believed and had the faith that the Lord was going to take care of them and their family. And so I would say those women and that line is what has strengthened me to my core.
Mhm. And, I think something important to point out sometimes, especially when we're children growing up and teenagers and going into those young adult challenging years, we don't really know how to pray for ourselves very well. We pray
Yeah.
for what we want. I want a
Yes.
new car. God, let me get a new car. I mean, we pray for the things
Future
that we
husband.
want. Right, but you have that grandmother
Yeah.
who has an intercession prayer. She intercedes for you
Mhm.
in the blank spaces, the gaps where you're not praying for yourself, and that grandmother is pouring that intercessional prayer into your life that is so important and so powerful, and I'm so happy, Jamie, that you had that in your life, that that your grandmother was praying for you probably before you were even born. And that's just
Absolutely.
such a beautiful
Isn't it
gift.
neat?
Oh, it
Yeah.
is. It's so cool. So I can't remember exactly, Jamie, how I met you, but I think I met you through your work at the Demand Project.
Yeah.
And for the audience members that don't know what the Demand Project is, Jamie, would you mind? I know that is a conversation in itself that
Yes.
could take, a week, but if you could share about the Demand Project, how you got involved and what the role of the Demand Project is
Mhm.
today in our communities, in our
Yeah.
state.
I met you through Kelly Stacy at our 2021 gala, Raising Hope Blue Tie Gala. You had taken her pictures. Do you remember that?
Yes, and I have to
Yeah.
tell you, I brought Kelly to the Demand Project.
Okay. I know. Through your podcast
It's like I
or through
brought
your Zoom. I know.
exactly.
I
I
know.
know, it's like
And
I
so
recruited
you were
Kelly,
involved.
so
Yeah,
so
you were
good.
involved before I was, and so I know that that was the connection that I had gotten to know you. And my goodness, Pamela, you're such an inspiration and just such an encourager. And
Oh, you're so
with
kind. Thank you.
without people like you, I wouldn't be as strong even in the position that I'm currently in. That he's, the Kim Spences and the Pamela Jeans. I mean,
Mm.
those
Oh,
women
thank
that
you.
have really championed me on, challenged me, but also more than anything encouraged me, because this work, working with children surviving sexual exploitation and working in the community, telling a story that is something that people want to ignore because it's almost impossible to digest. It does take a really special person, and I'm not calling myself special, but the Lord knows my strengths. And so when He strategically positioned me at the organization through a series of literally God ordained things, that we don't even have time to go into, but He was he was priming and prepping me for a decade. I was introduced to child trafficking back in 2010 at a time that no one was talking about it. There was hardly any education out there. And as a rebel, um, I do have that rebel in me. I knew that I was onto something important because it was against the grain and it was
Mm,
not popular, and I've
right.
always been one to lean into some of those things and be a front runner. I'm a trendsetter
Hmm.
in a lot of aspects, and so it was 10 years before I even knew about the Demand Project that God was positioning me, and he was teaching me and showing me things that I needed to know because he was strengthening my shoulders. I was
Hmm.
going to be carrying a burden for children that needed to be saved out of this modern day slavery, and children that needed to have not just a safe place, but a place of restoration. He also knew that I was going to be encountering parents that needed to tell me their stories and people needing to share what's happened to them. And that's not for everyone. And so, my position at the organization that's serving children and adults in the realm of, victim to survivor, to thriver. We don't even want them living in the survivor mindset. We want them to be more than what has happened to them. But what my position is I help fund all of the departments in which we are fighting human trafficking, child sexual abuse material, online enticement, and the commercial sexual exploitation of children. So what's funny is being the second born of two girls. I used to stress my sister out by not planning things. Like I would go on vacation and she would ask me questions and I would have nothing planned. She wasn't even going, but she was so stressed that I didn't have all my ducks in a row.
A
I'm
sympathy
very
stress, huh?
spontaneous. I'm very free spirited. And so when the Lord positioned me here as an event coordinator, ha, 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 right? Because that's a lot of spreadsheets and a lot of planning and a lot of things that I call things, what is your effortless? I like to find out what people's effortless is. Tell you, Pamela, that is not my effortless to plan anything but God, right? But
Mhm.
Jesus. He came in and just showed off because he had put an anointing on me to gather people that I can do, and I've always had that gift of, I told my mom when I was younger, I said, "Mom, they're not," she said, "Don't talk to strangers." I said, "They're not strangers. They're just friends I haven't met yet."
Yeah.
And if you, Pamela will be the first one to tell you that that is so true for Jamie because I don't have strangers. They're just friends. And so he had given me an anointing to do something, and in his glory, like he's literally just showing off through me because I am not a planner. And we've been able to fund through events. And when I say we, me and my team, I have a team of volunteers. I have a board, an event board. I have event volunteers. There's about 30 of us that pull off each one of these events. We do 4 major events every year. And the funding for 2022, we haven't gotten the numbers yet for 23, but 2022 was 48% of our incoming. Um,
Wow, that's
at
amazing.
funds. And so, what that meant for me, especially coming into 2024, was that if we need to be at $3 million, our events have to be 1.5 million. So
Mhm. Right,
that's what it
yeah.
meant to me. And so, it's a huge goal, but it's something that I know that the Lord has been solidifying, the foundation of what we are as an organization, who I am as a person, and He's just opening those doors, and really the floodgates have just been slowly opening, and we're feeling in 2024 that this is going to be the rain down and into
Mm.
2025. 5.
That's awesome. So, for the audience, just to maybe clarify and fill in a couple of gaps, the Demand Project, and Jamie, correct me here if I don't say it correctly, is eradicating the demand for online trafficking,
Mhm.
human trafficking, and sex trafficking. Would
Correct.
that be
Yeah,
correct?
that's a great summary. Yeah.
Okay, and Jamie's role is to fundraise
Yeah.
for the women and young girls that are taken out of sex trafficking for restoration, because we may rescue people, slaves from the sex trafficking and human trafficking world, but there's very few places for them to be restored. And just like a drug addict or a alcoholic or someone with an addiction, if you don't restore them from an addiction, from this slavery, chances are they're going to go right back into it, because they haven't found a new way and a way of restoration to get them out of it forever, to be able to build onto a new life. How does that sound, Jamie,
Yeah,
as far as
and
a
I
full
wanna even,
circle?
lean into that a little bit. So the Demand Project has the largest capacity for a safe house in our entire country, and what that means is
That's insane.
most safe houses, that are doing the work that we're doing have anywhere from 3 to 8 beds. We have the capacity to house 30 children.
Wow.
And a lot of our setbacks at this moment is hiring and financing. And so simultaneously, we are doing that as, we have a wait list of children that need to come that
Wow.
we don't have the
Just
staffing
can't
or the
facilitate them.
finances,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Oh
So,
my gosh.
so what it is, in our country currently, 82% of children that are rescued from sex trafficking return almost immediately. And you can liken that to like the first 48 with the murder, right? Like if you're not solving it if you're not solving the solutions for this child or even adult in those first 48 hours, the re-exploitation level is so high. And
Mhm.
most of that is due to their vulnerability. But it's more likened, honestly, Pamela, to a war veteran because
Mhm.
their brains are similar. Like these children, so we take girls ages 11 to 17 years old, their brains are likened to a war veteran. So the
Wow.
levels of PTSD that are that are not just affecting their brain but their bodies make it to where they can't function in society. So it goes deeper than even just a re-regulation of their minds. It's not. It's so deep. And what we have seen in our research and just hands-on care that you're looking at about 3 years of the restorative process before these children are even able to fully understand what's happened, to fully what we call unthaw,
Mm.
for them
Wow.
to be able to learn, to have the capacity to even learn, memorize things. So when you're looking at the restorative care, 26 states have no beds for children. There
Wow.
are only 661 current available beds, which that's just meaning that they're a program. They may be filled, but there's 661 beds in all 50 states in the United States of America to care for children surviving this crime. And so the reason why there's that low of number is because restoration is expensive.
Mhm.
Restoration is relational. Restoration is messy, and it is it's going back and forth into crisis that most people are either not equipped to help or they're not willing because
Well,
of how
yeah,
messy it is.
and it takes so much time. I mean,
Time.
if you're talking 3 years, that is a lot of time. So that I could see would be very daunting. Jamie, thank you for that clarification and that in-depth explanation. I really appreciate it. What jumped into my mind was, it sounds like a cult victim,
Mm.
where they have been so deprogrammed from their past self, that they have to be reprogrammed into the new human being that they are becoming.
Yeah, and sexual abuse does something to the brain that nothing else does.
Mm,
And these children may not even have a base to return to, if
wow,
that makes sense. And
it
so
does.
what what you're dealing with is so convoluted. Our national average is 40% of trafficked children are trafficked by a family member. Now, what we are seeing as an organization that's been doing this now for 11 years is 70% of our clients have been trafficked by a family member.
Wow, that's
So when
astounding.
it's uh, it's it's the demand, and it goes back to why we are, as an organization, trying to eradicate the demand for sex
Mhm.
with kids. And that is a whole nother podcast, because you asked me why we're in the state that we're in, and I could talk to you forever about it.
Yeah.
But to the just speaking to the restorative part of what we do, because that's one of four ways that we're fighting these crimes, is restoration. um, but it's a whole body approach. And so each child has anywhere from 5 to 7 people on their team, and they're committed to each individual piece of their whole self, right? You could say body, mind, and soul, but we go even a little deeper than that in our program. And the program is called Journey to Freedom. And you don't get freedom without going through the process. And that process looks very different for each child.
Oh my gosh, that is phenomenal. And you are right, Jamie. We'll do another podcast where we really dive into the infrastructure and the nuts and bolts of the demand project. That's
Part
not our
two.
purpose for today,
Yeah.
but we'll definitely do that at another time, because I want to, when we do that, I want to focus on it really intentionally and dig really, really deep into it. So, if you will, Jamie, I know the audience, I have such an amazing audience. I know that people listening are going to want to help.
Yeah.
If they can help financially, a volunteer time, Jamie, what would be the best way for them to help, to give, to volunteer time, to donate? What does that look like? Where's the best way to outreach?
Yeah. So, in 2020, when the Lord had called me into full time work after being a stay at home mom for 8.5 years, um, I knew what my piece was. I knew it. I knew what He was calling me to do. And you know he had a message for me, but it was obviously has turned into a message for others. But when we were at it as a nation praying for COVID, right,
Mhm.
praying, we were all reciting, if the righteous will pray, I will heal their land, right, I will hear them and heal their land. And the Holy Spirit, Pamela, said, Jamie, if we do not heal the sickest part of our country, which is what's happening to children, we will never be healed. And I took that really seriously, because what it meant to me was that it was going to take all of us. It was going to take the prayers of the righteous. And I'm seeing this more and more, Pamela, where people who are asking the Father to break their hearts and that are following the Holy Spirit, they're getting human trafficking as pray for this,
Mm.
help this, right? And they don't necessarily know what to do. So I will say, first and foremost, put us on the top of your prayer list. Not just the Demand Project, but organizations across the country that are in the trenches, law enforcement who are actively trying to combat this. So pray. That is the best thing that we can do. The second thing is visiting our website, thedemandproject.org, and click Join the Fight. We need volunteers. We need people who can be mentors to these children. We have a prayer team, Pamela. We're in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and our prayer team has consecutively 7 people on it. That's a
Wow.
problem. It's a
That is a
problem.
problem.
And
Wow.
so, if that is what God's calling you to do, come be in this room, in this office, at our campus. praying, and strategic prayers, things that we can't just put out to the public, things that only volunteers, vetted volunteers, can have access to, information that is extremely important to be prayed over. We also need mentors. We need life skill coaches. We need office volunteers. I need someone to come help answer phones, to help stuff envelopes, to maybe even events. Like if you're interested in the things I was saying at the beginning, your effortless is fundraising, come help us. Also monetary donations. If we had 25,000 people, okay, I live in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. Our population's over 100,000. If we had 25,000 people giving $25 a month, we would be sustainably fully funded.
Mm.
Right? That is a
Wow.
drop in the bucket when we look at even Tulsa, let alone Oklahoma, let alone the country. We have children
Mhm.
from 7 different states because, again, 26 states have no beds. There's
Wow.
only 661 beds at coast to coast. So we need your monthly commitment because guess what? Those one-time gifts of 10,000, 25,000 are amazing, but they don't keep our lights on.
Yeah,
Because what
isn't
keeps
that
our lights
crazy?
on is the $25. I have somebody that gives $5 a month, and I have someone that gives $500 a month. And
Mm.
so pick your monthly contribution to invest in an organization that's doing what most people don't want to do, aren't doing, we need room for hundreds of thousands of children. That's the number we're working with on an annual basis. Trafficked in our country is anywhere, they say, from 300 to 500,000 children in the United States every single year.
That is insanity. That's insanity. Wow. Okay. Well, thanks for that wake up call because and I'm familiar with your work and the work of the Demand Project, and that is shocking to me. So I can imagine if the listeners have never heard of the Demand Project and have no idea what the work is, I'm sure they are on the floor right now with, oh my gosh. So, friends, if you can give and commit to $25 a month, that's not hard to do. If you're getting a coffee once a week, skip that for 2 weeks and you've got your $25. Because if you go to a gourmet coffee place, you know it's a little pricey
It's
these days.
$7. I
Yeah,
know.
exactly. Jamie's like, "It's $7, I can tell
I
you."
know.
And I'm
Just
not
had
knock
one this morning.
I know, well, and I'm not knocking coffee shops, I just use that
For
as a quick
sure.
analogy because
Absolutely.
it's easy for someone to say, "Gosh, I get a coffee, 3 times a week, that's $21 right there. I could do that and throw in $4 and I would have the $25. $25 is not a lot when you think about how well most of us live. Not everybody, but most of us live quite well, and $25 is not a big sacrifice to be able to help keep the lights on of an organization that is really, really doing some incredible, incredible good in our country. Jamie, thank you for that. I'm going to flip our conversation in a new direction.
Okay.
So buckle up your seatbelt because I have a
Woohoo.
question for you.
I'm dancing.
Okay, good. I love it. What
Getting
does the
ready.
word adversity mean to you?
Adversity was told to me that nothing great comes without it. And when the Lord was showing me this word, obviously adversity. I'm like, no, thank you. I'm all set, Lord.
No, thank you. Next, please.
I'll have another. Um,
Right.
yeah, and so it's not something that feels good, right? Adversity seems icky. There's not a positive way to view adversity other than the fact that it's required to become great and to create great things. And, you know, we all have a life story. And I'm alluded to that a little bit in the beginning. But the Lord told me, Jamie, we have a post COVID story. Every
Oh
single
gosh.
person has been in this place of adversity for 4 years. I mean, I'm raising my hand. I've been in severe adversity for 4 years. And the Lord is saying, learn how to be great in it because it may never end. And that isn't doom and gloom. But when you read Revelation, one of the first verses says, read this often. Read this often. And Revelation is all about adversity. And Revelation, as a Christian, should not scare us. It should be something that we are on guard for, right? So if the Lord is like, dress in your armor, does that mean you're going to the mall? No, it
No,
means
it
you're
doesn't.
going into battle. And no battle is going to come without adversity. And so he wants to shift our minds as lovers of the Lord. He wants to shift our minds from being in the battle alone, being in the battle together, because if together we can share in those burdens, if we can talk about what's going on, we can understand, one, we're not alone, but that two, he says, I'm going to be there. When two or more are gathered in his name, I'm going to be there. So we've gone through this place of adversity as a country, as a church, as, parents, as business owners. Oh my goodness. I just reeling of all these different people's stories popping in my head of adversity. And so I think adversity, Pamela, is important for unity. And that's the Father's heart.
Oh, that was good, Jamie. That was really, really good. And I think if you are in a place where you can embrace adversity and know that the biggest lessons of your life will come through adversity, if you're learning something through all of the hard times, that's where you get led to the next great thing that you're meant to do.
Absolutely.
So that leads me to my next question for you, Jamie, is we all have a very important purpose while we walk the earth. As long as there's breath in our lungs, there is something important that we are meant to do. What is Jamie Miller's purpose outside of the Demand Project?
I've always believed that the reason I was on this earth was to make people feel seen. And my purpose is to serve.
Mhm.
I got a really big lesson in that at a previous church that I was at. And the Lord is just like, why aren't you serving? Like, why are you coming to church to be served? Like, you go into every place to serve. And whether that is at that local coffee shop while you're waiting on a coffee, or it is in a ministerial, position, you're there to serve. You're there to see other people. And whether I'm in the adversity, I'm in the fire, whatever, like, that's going to be lifted, and it will actually be carried in a way by the Lord as we serve. And so I think that is my biggest purpose, is to just serve those that don't even know they need it.
Oh, yeah, isn't that the truth? Sometimes, if you are I think when we find a place of centeredness within ourselves, it allows us to see people in a room and read a room well and find that person that really needs to be seen, whether they know it or not. They may want to just hide behind the scenes or, hide behind the counter type of a mindset. But when you can see that person and bring them out and help them step into who they're meant to be, that is one of the greatest gifts. And I believe, Jamie, you do that so, so well. I mean, every time I show up to a networking event or go to some function around the city of Tulsa, almost always, more times than not, Jamie Miller's there. I'm
Yeah.
like, how are you everywhere? How are you everywhere? And I'm like, oh, yep, Jamie's here. Of course she is. Where else would she be?
Mhm.
But I witnessed
Well,
that
I'm
with
actually
you.
following you around, but
I know. Oh, you're the stalker. I didn't know I had. Okay. Well, and I think that's just such a beautiful gift, though, because I see some people go to events and functions and networking and whatever, kind of begrudgingly, like, oh gosh, I have to go to this
right.
networking event. Whereas I see you, I get to go to this
Yeah.
event today, and I can't wait to see who I meet.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I
Absolutely.
love that because that's such a gift that you have. So, Jamie, where do you want to make the biggest impact in the world?
At home.
Oh, yes,
With my
with your
girls.
girls. Yes.
Yeah, I want them, so quickly are they gonna be at that place where, "Mom, I don't hate you anymore," right? Like,
Right.
I'm not mad at you for being, like, a loser mom,
Right.
but, those memory like, how they see mom, that
Mhm.
legacy that you hear a lot about. I honestly don't think it has anything to do with money. I don't, I know that gets wrapped around that a lot. Leave a legacy for your family, but you can't take that with you, and neither can they. And if Jesus is coming back as soon as I think that he is, I just want my kids. I want to impact my kids and their friends. There's so many kids, Pamela, in elementary school and middle school and high school that are so hurting, that I want to raise my husband up. I want him to be a father to the fatherless. I want my kids to be Jesus in their schools and to everyone around them. And I want that impact to be a part of what the ministry God has for me, and the service that God has for me is right there in my four walls.
Oh, that's so good. That's such a great answer. I love asking that question because I get a plethora of
Yeah.
answers, and it's just fun to see where that lands with each person that I interview and have a conversation with. So, Jamie, what advice would you give the 10-year-old Jamie?
Mm. 10-year-old Jamie. You will have a calculator in your hand the rest of your life. Um, I was really bad at math. Um,
Don't worry, honey, you don't have to memorize numbers because you'll have a
yeah,
calculator.
this
That's
is
good advice.
school's a joke.
Wouldn't have that have been nice to know when you were 10?
I was not very good at school. Yeah, Pamela, God put such a special anointing on me at around 12. So when I think of like 10-year-old Jamie, I really think about 12-year-old Jamie. Um, and he told me who I was, and I really harnessed who I was. And so what I would tell me is that I need to learn how to articulate it and teach it. I
Mm.
wish I would have known more about mentoring, leadership, discipleship. I wish I would have had that more in my life. So more than anything, I probably would tell my mom, get her a person, but I just don't think it was that common, at least not in my
Right.
circles and not in my church and my Christian school. It was kind of just like go with the crowd, like be
Well,
like
and it
everybody else.
wasn't the right time yet, though.
Yeah,
It just wasn't the right time because I don't think, back when you were 10, 30 years ago, the need isn't what it is today. So having that ability to mentor and lead very specifically, the need wasn't there yet. So it wasn't the right
yeah.
time.
Yeah, and I think a lot of parents, I talk to a lot of parents, and even parents whose children are just struggling. All of our kids are struggling. I
Right.
mean, we're in a generation that's being overran by the enemy,
Mhm.
and in a rapid way. And so, I just encourage parents, though, that are struggling to find an outside voice, find that person, get plugged into a church, get plugged into a place where you're going to find a teenager or maybe a young adult who can speak life into your kids, and that it's not just your own work. I think it goes back to the community stuff. Like, we're
Mhm.
not meant to do this alone. So
Right.
go carry the burden for someone else, and open yourself up. Be vulnerable to people around you so that they can breathe life into you and your family. We need more of that.
That's such great advice, Jamie. Community. And I think, everyone recovering from COVID, I think we lost our connection with community. Many of us lost our communities, just
Yeah.
simply lost touch with the people we would spend time with. So rebuilding community, that's such great advice. Another quick little rapid fire question for you is this. What is one thing that no one in the whole world knows about Jamie?
This was not on the list, Pamela.
Of course, I told you, I warned you, not everything. We might ebb and flow, and we ebbed and we flowed. So
No,
what's one thing that no one in the whole world
I'm
knows
so
about Jamie?
transparent, Pamela. This one's a hard one for me. I would tell anybody anything. Mm, it's a hard one. I would say what people would be surprised of is that I struggle with making deep connections with people that are closest to me.
Oh,
Um,
that's
I
interesting.
think that that would surprise a lot of people that actually at home I don't people think I talk a lot, but it's because I have a lot to say about certain things. So if people already know the things that I have to say, I may not talk a lot. And I
Mm.
do like being quiet um, in the times that I can be. So I think that that would surprise people. I also, one thing that surprises people is when I have no fear of failure. I've been doing that my whole life.
Right.
Like that does not scare me one bit to
So
mess up.
you've mastered failure.
I
Good
have
for you.
mastered failure, but I have
I
a
love it.
deep fear of success.
Oh,
And
that's interesting.
that is something that takes a lot more ownership because failure, you can just do it and go on. Success is something that you have to sustain. And so I
Mm.
think I have a sustaining problem.
Oh, that's like a coaching conversation, Jamie.
Uh,
We could coach you through
yes.
that. Oh my
Yes.
gosh, that's
So
such a good
I think that
one.
would shock people because you just kind of see me and she's got it all together. She's fine, and
Yeah.
I'm not. I have none of, I,
Yeah, and I think if we're all honest with ourselves and honest with the world, none of us have everything together. We all
yeah,
have our little things that creep into the back of our mind, and we have to all deal with. And I love the transparency that you're really an introverted extrovert.
maybe.
Because and I think, Jamie, your quiet time is purposeful and necessary
Yes.
because it helps reload and helps you refurbish and build back up the time that you have to be extroverted and be out
Ooh,
into the world and pouring on your blessings. So your quiet time is very necessary. It's your refueling time.
yes.
And I think you have to have
Absolutely.
that. That
Absolutely.
is so good. Thanks for answering that question because I know it's a hard
Yes.
one. Sometimes I
Sorry it
get,
took so long
little
to
no,
get ready.
it was a good one. Sometimes it's little quirky, funny things that, I'm scared of the dark or, whatever. But,
Well,
sometimes it's like, oh, no one would never know I'm scared of the dark.
I'm not really afraid of a lot of things. I'm afraid of fake things, success. That's so
That's so
lame.
good. Oh my gosh, that's so, so awesome. Okay, we're going to wrap it up, Jamie, with one final question. What advice would you give someone? Because I know, Jamie, I love your story. And I didn't know a lot of the things you shared today, I didn't know about you. So I learned a lot about you. And thank you for that transparency. But if there's this woman listening who is really stacked behind many layers of fear, wants to step in front of the fear and get out there and live her purpose, live the purpose that God has created her to be, what advice or strategy would you give her to start? Because I think that's the hardest part is I don't know where to start. I know what I want to do, but I don't know where to start. What
Mm,
advice do you have for her?
yeah, this is twofold. So these are both biblical perspectives. Um, the word is a lamp unto our feet and a light unto our path. And that means that we're literally only seeing step by step by step. Because if the Lord lit up our whole path, Pamela, you and I, and any woman on this, we would have ran for the hills,
Oh,
right?
yeah, I'd have been
Because
frozen.
we
I'd be
don't
like,
want to
nope,
see the
not
whole
starting.
we can't do the whole path, but
Yeah.
you have to put one foot in front of the other because when you think of a boat in the water, the Lord can steer it which in every way that he wants to. But if you're docked up, if you're on the bank, if
Hmm.
you're still in your boat slip, there's just not a lot that he can do with that. And
Oh
so,
my gosh.
right, like get out, go, like put one foot in front of the other. And that is part of how I got to where I am today. And the second thing is Matthew 17:20 and 21. If you have faith like a mustard seed, you can tell the mountain to go from here to the sea. But that will only happen through fasting and praying. So when I think
Mm.
about fear and when I think about the unknown, or I think about maybe something being in the way, you have to fast and you have to pray. And in that, we're waiting, we're listening, we're denying our flesh um, something that is necessary for us to live so that the Lord can show us some things that otherwise we wouldn't be able to hear.
That's such great advice. One step at a time. Don't try to do the whole thing at once, but just take one step at a time. That's such great advice, Jamie.
Well, it's the only
Jamie,
way we're here.
I just want to thank you so much for being here today and being part of the podcast and allowing me to ask you some tricky questions, some questions that I threw in without you knowing they
Right.
were coming. So thanks for playing with me today. I know you were very inspirational. Would you give us the Demand Project contact information in case someone wants to reach out and connect with the Demand Project?
Absolutely. First off, if you want to get a hold of me, it is JAMIE at thedemandproject.org. And then if you will go to thedemandproject.org to find out how you can join the fight, to look at our 990s, which if you're giving to a nonprofit and you don't know their financials, please go look at their financials, because it matters. It matters where the money is going. 76% of every dollar donated is going directly to survivors, guys,
Oh,
and we need more of your help. So go there to donate. You can sign up to be a monthly donor through there. And let's get you educated. We can come and do presentations. We want to come to your kid's school, to your PTA meeting, to your church. We have stuff for kids, parents, professionals, and then also come to our events. Pamela can be the first one to tell you that they're different. They're different than
oh.
anything else you're going to experience. And the cause is necessary. Now is the time, and the time is for
I
us.
can,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Jamie, but
Yeah.
I just have to plug your gala. I know it's
Yes.
coming up in March. Is that correct?
Yes, it is March 23rd. Tickets, tables, and sponsorships are on sale now. We also are in need for procurement items. So maybe you are in a product driven business that you want to make up a beautiful basket for the event, or if you have a house in Broken Bow that you want to donate for a weekend that we can auction off. If your company has some marketing dollars, you can sponsor, or you can even buy a table. And individual tickets, it's all on sale now, and we need all of you guys' help.
And I will tell you, the gala will not disappoint.
No,
It is phenomenal, and it is not a boring, stuffy charity event.
no,
Oh my gosh, it is the farthest thing from that.
yeah,
It is incredible. If you don't have a community of people like-minded that you're just looking for a place to be, the Demand Project community is phenomenal. They have so many amazing people there. You have to attend this gala. You won't be disappointed. It's not stuffing. It's not boring. It's absolutely phenomenal. It's life changing, to be honest with you. You will learn things that you had no idea because let's be honest, most of us live in kind of this sheltered little bubble, safe
yeah,
bubble. Well, there's a lot of children out there that are in the trenches with the wolves, and they are being chased every single day of their life by the wolves in human trafficking and slavery. So please reach out to thedemandproject.org. Reach out to Jamie at thedemandproject.org and get as much information as you would like. Go see that website, do a deep dive, look at where their money is being spent. I mean, 76% of every dollar goes to the victims. That's unheard of in a nonprofit like yours, Jamie, an organization like yours. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart, Jamie, to have you here. I just really appreciate you being here. And friends and listeners, thank you again for your time. I know it's so valuable. There's many things that you could be doing right now, and I appreciate you spending your time with me right now. Jamie,
yeah.
I'll give you the final word, okay?
Yes. Well, thank you guys so much, Pamela. You are just a gem. You light up so many people's lives, and I am grateful to know you. I'm grateful to be your friend, to be on your prayer list, and I know that you bless all of these women's lives who tune in to you on a regular basis, but are also connected to you in person. Never stop shining, never stop being you, because we need more yous in this world.
Aw, thank you so much. And likewise, Jamie,
Yeah.
likewise. My friends, thank you again for joining me, and I will see you here next week.
Thank you for joining us today on a New Life podcast. We will see you next time.